on the same battlefield. We do have a brotherhood, and I will say to you that also my thoughts really when I think about service go to the people who are out there doing it today. There are 140,000 young Americans in Iraq right now, another 20,000 in Afghanistan. We all should keep them in our thoughts. It's kind of easy to intellectualize the war, particularly when there isn't a draft and when people are volunteering. But these are people, as you here on campus know and remember, who went to school with you, who played athletics with you, who went to parties with you. And, we need to keep reminding the country and the human face that is over there doing this during this war. It's especially gratifying to me that Max Cleveland came here today. It's a hard journey, as you might imagine. We share something else in common. I've known Max since 1977, when he became the Veterans Administrator in the Carter administration. We go back a long way. He was Secretary of State in Georgia. He was in the United States Senate, and when he ran for re-election, the same team that is running ads against our campaign were the ones that ran distorted, negative, scurrilous ads on his campaign, implying that he was soft on terrorism, that he had Osama bin Laden rooting for him, all of these sort of normal character assassinations that are designed to affect people's emotions. And so when he was talking about watching this tactic that has evolved in the Karl Rove era, the tactics of character assassination, he knows it once he speaks. They did it to John McCain, one of their own. They did it to Max, they did it to John Kerry, they did it earlier to Jack Murtha, who I've also known for a long time. And here we have had these ads as of the last week or so, piled on to others that have actually presented some of my writings in a rather flavorful manner, in a distorted manner. I was talking to someone yesterday, he said, you know, you can do the same thing with the Bible. Take out different pieces of the Bible and say, this is really scandalous stuff, you know, all those sex scenes and all this other stuff. And
he hasn't read that either.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there. But I did on Saturday, I gave a speech and I pulled out some quotes to try to put my works into context, and given that this is a noted academic campus, I'll touch on a couple of them, just to refresh people's memories about my other career, my chosen career that I've spent a good bit of time in, Fields of Fire, which I suppose was, I've not read what they did, by the way, but I've heard about it, obviously. Fields of Fire is known as a classic novel of the Vietnam War. It was on the Commandant of the Marine Corps' reading list for more than 20 years, still is today. It was the most taught piece of American literature on college campuses in courses on the Vietnam War for years. As the Houston Post said, few writers since Stephen Crane have portrayed men at war with such a ring of steely truth. Sense of Honor is a blue jacket book published by the Naval Institute, which is a quasi-official organization of the United States Navy. Though the Boston Globe called it, quote, a remarkable moral statement. A country such as this, my third novel, The Wall Street Journal, no friend of the Democrats, called it a powerful moving drama of impressive scale, a major work of our time. Something to Die For, which I heard was quoted. The Washington Times said, Webb is as much a moral philosopher of the military as a novelist. At a time when fiction seems to find it harder and harder to address moral issues, this makes him a valuable man in the typewriter. The Washington Post said, a century from now, Webb will be studied for the light he sheds on military life and civil military relations. The Emperor's General was called historical fiction of a high order. Lost Soldiers, which got a lot of attention, was called a masterpiece, one of the most poignant and powerful novels of this generation. The Asia Reporter said, perhaps the definitive depiction of the Vietnam that America left behind. The LA Times said, Webb knows what he writes writes about. His rendering of Americans in modern Asia is reminiscent of Joseph Conrad's portraits of Westerners in the East a century ago. Now, I obviously did not believe that at the beginning of the Senate campaign I would be standing here reading invited reviews from my novels. But I say this to make a point. The first point is that I've led a literary career, and I'm very proud of it. And the second one is that I have lived in the real world, and I have reported on the real world in my writings. I started working when I was 12 years old. The three of us fought in an ugly and brutal war, and I have reported the truth of that war. I was covering the Marines at Beirut, getting shot at again as a journalist. I was in Afghanistan 2 years ago, going on combat patrol, sleeping on the ground, not coming over as some pampered senator. You know, getting my little dog and pony show briefings, as we used to call it in the Marine Corps. So, the point is that I have written about what I've seen, and people need to understand that. And if you're writing, and you're an honest writer, you're going to write about the world as it exists, with all its beauty and all its ugliness. And it sort of defies my imagination that this would turn into some sort of political statement or profile about my career and about my ethics. We haven't done that. Those of you who've been with us in this campaign know that. From the very beginning, I have declined to go after George Allen whenever he's been in trouble. The New Republic articles in the spring, they asked me to comment on him personally about that. I refused. The incident